Hi, hi everyone. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Antoine, and I'll be moderating this panel today, entitled About Time. I'm very extremely glad and honored to be here with three panelists that I'm going to introduce right now. So I'm going to do by proximity. So the first one is Solvej Balle. Thank you very much for being here, Solvej. You are Danish. You started your literary journey, and I'm not going to use like the word career because I think you're against that. Aged 24, starting writing like short poetry and different prose texts. And you've started a couple of years ago a series called The Calculation of Volume, and you have the cover over there in different languages. Hopefully we'll be discussing around this series in a few moments. Here at the very opposite, I have Andrés Barba. You are a writer, poet, photographer, translator as well. You started your journey into literature with different novels. One that received numerous prizes, but especially very prestigious one in Spain is called A Luminous Republic, and it got the Premio Ejalde. And you're here with us to talk about your latest novel called El Último Día de la Vida Interior, in which obviously there will be ghosts and time will be central. Thank you for being here. I have also with us Agnieszka Szpila. You are Polish. You got a degree in cultural studies. You are. We hear in the room with like people who have like very different facets and personalities. But you are an activist, a writer, a screenwriter. I mean, many things. And you wrote a first novel called Bardo. I don't know how to pronounce. Sorry. Bardo. And now your book Hexes, which has just been translated into English, is also about time, and we'll be discussing it right now. So as you guys all understood, time is very central. It's at the very heart of all of your novels, be it at the as the very matrix of your book, of your series, Solvej, as some kind of way of entering into a character's personality. I'm thinking about your book, Andrés Barba, or as a theme that is going through generations in your book, Agnieszka. So my first question is going to be very broad, and we'll narrow down as we go. But can you maybe, as you go back on the plot, the very plot, and like just giving us a few words about your book, can you tell us more about how time took shape in the process of writing? Was it from the very beginning you had this interest of like working around temporality as making it the very plot, or is it something that came as you wrote because you had like a specific plot in mind? Who wants to jump first? You go? You can.
Well, I'll try to make it short. Because does it work? Yeah, okay. I'll try to make it short because it's a long story. But the book is about a woman who is stuck in one single day, which is a very foolish idea. It was all the way back in '87 when I got the idea so I knew from the very beginning. To be clear about I mean, I knew from the very beginning that it was about time, because she simply is in a day, the 18th of November, that goes on and on and on. And I had been working, my first book was a novel, and I had realized suddenly on the way that there was something about time contracting. So suddenly what felt like many years was actually only 9 months. So this contraction of time was there from the beginning. And so that was kind of, that was the basic idea. And then of course I had to find out what happens then, what happens to material and what happens to space. So time came first in my case, I would say. So what about you two?
When I started working on hexes, there was a time in Poland of black marches where women, there was a government decision of taking women rights for abortion, which wasn't even easy back then, but then was the time when they decided that when you are pregnant and the fetus is like damaged or like deeply disabled or you can die, it doesn't matter. You cannot make the abortion. So all the women and many men and transgender people, like queer, they went on streets. There were like millions of us protesting, and we didn't change it. And I asked myself a question: why we didn't make this change, even there were millions of us? Why? And I had that feeling that wasn't from mind. It didn't come from my mind. It came from my body, I think, from my soul also. That we didn't win this because we got stuck into our individuals' identities. Me as Agnieszka Szpila, my friend as Dominika Prejdova, someone else, my mother as my mother. But I had a feeling that to win this, we need to claim for those who were there before and had the same problems in the past, just to make these protests not from the present perspective only, just to make a vehicle between the past and the future. And that's how I started writing hexes. Hexes are a vehicle. It's a performing book or a book with a performing structure, which leads us to transform our energy and to get something like alchemical metamorphosis. And I will talk about this later. I don't wanna.
It's fine, it's about time, so we'll try to share our time together.
Hello? Is this working? Well, I'm trying not to spoil my book. I think it's the most spoilable book on earth. So I will talk about how the book began and how was the original idea of the book. I was with a friend, he was selling houses at that time. And we went to this empty house, and it was beautiful because I thought, I just all of a sudden realized I found an idea of a short ghost story, which was there is this woman who goes to a house which is empty, and she sees the reverberation, the reflection of herself the day before. So she's starting to go to the house just to see herself the day before, what she did the day before. And that idea of a time out of joint, what appealed me to write the story. So I tried for months, it didn't work. I quit the pandemic. And it was beautiful because the pandemic, it was a ghost story in a way. So we went all through a ghost story of ourselves, in a way, we became the ghost of our own house. Our real life was gone. Being a ghost was more real than the real life. Time, if you remember, at the pandemic was out of joint for us. We didn't know it was for how many months or weeks or days we've been locked. So after the pandemic, I realized that it didn't work the first time because I didn't go through the experience of being a ghost. But the pandemic gave me that experience, and that experience had a lot to do with time, in a way. How we experience that we are inside a time that is broken, that is no longer working, and that we are, in a way, out of time. So, and we can go in again. So that is the experience of being a ghost, and I think it's in our mind forever. So this is now that is genetically in our. I mean, we're set in this experience of being a ghost for a while. So it was through that experience that I could confront writing a ghost story about time.
Well, the atmosphere, and I think the festival is already said, because I didn't even utter the word ghost, and it suddenly appeared like through your speaking. But I hear a lot of, like, it's very interesting because I hear a lot of different contexts of writing, right? I hear a very sort of philosophical, personal quest in your case, something that emerged through a political context, and in your case, Andrés, maybe something that is just a casual conversation then turn out to be like something ontological, and that's gained more depth as you were reflecting through the context of the pandemic. But because you already pronounced the word ghost, I'm just curious, and this is just a question here. What's your degree of familiarity with ghosts? Is it like, do you have any, I don't know, and I'm not speaking about your book, and you can obviously introduce the ghosts that are present in your book, but is it like an idea or a presence that has haunted you while you were children, or is it something that you're constantly thinking of? I'm just curious. It's just because you pronounce it. I didn't plan to ask you this question. Yeah.
So you have to ask first.
Well, the closest, I think, this is a trap in a way, no? What do you think? It was when my dad died around 10 years ago, and for almost half a year, I had every night the same dream. The dream was I was with my dad, and it has two versions. There was version 1, version 2. In my dream, my dad was dead, and in the first version, I was and he didn't know it. And he was acting like he didn't know he was dead. In the first version, I was like trying to tell my dad, "Dad, you're dead." That was the tragic version of it. And there was a comic version. It was like I was trying my dad not to realize that he was dead. That was the second version. But every night, I was having the same dream. So I went to Mexico. I was working for a hotel, and they did all these shaman things with shamans in Mexico, and taking like drugs and doing like things, a little bit crazy things with shamans. And I talked with this shaman, and he told me about this. Like, I have these dreams for 6 months, and then it was over. I never dreamed with that again. Like, but it was an everyday dream, every day, and then it's gone, and it's not anymore. And the shaman told me, well, it's so easy. It's the time that your dad was not knowing that he was dead. He was between two worlds, and he was trying to ask you for help. So in a way, you were helping your father to realize he was dead. And the beautiful thing is, like, it was a healing thing in a way. So it was kind of a ghost story, but it was also healing. And I think healing or redemption is one of the key aspects of ghosts stories, because there's someone who's needing to be redeemed or saved or for something he's done, and there's another person helping the other, right? So that's my story.
So for me, there are two moments. One of them is connecting with the past. When I was about 5 or 6, I don't remember, the Pope, John Paul II, Polish Pope, was about to come to Poland after being elected, and I don't know what happened to me. I was living with my grandparents in Wrocław, which was a German city before the Second World War, Breslau, and I woke up during the night and I took a chalk, and I draw on the furnitures, which were like navy blue. The Pope is a prick. And it was like, my grandmother didn't know I can write even, but that was the first sentence that, like, I know it's strange. I know it's like, yeah, but they took me to the church the next day. And they've been doing this every week on Thursday, and I was the child that was showed on the magnetovid, which was the beginning of the audio-video, you put a cassette, and then, yeah. So there were movies showed to me about Saint Bernadette and other saints, and the priest was like really praying over me for the ghost, a bad ghost, to leave my soul. So it lasts for like 2 years, and I use this motif writing access for the theater. And now in Polish theater, like 1 week ago, there was a premiere. There is a scene when a little girl is screaming in the monastery, like a prick, like Pope is a prick, Pope is a prick. So I make a big story from this. But that was the first moment when I was captured by ghost, I think, and it hasn't stopped yet.
I was going to ask.
Those ghosts are still like having a great habitat in me. But there is something else, and I write about this in my novel, In Excess. It's called, sorry for not beautiful word, it's Flaming Fucking Fury. I don't know how it's translated into French, but originally in Polish and in English it will be Flaming Fucking Fury, which is this kind of outrage when you stand against that much that your body seems to being burned, being in flames. And I have it often in my life in Poland, because this outrage doesn't appear in normal situation when someone says no to me. No, this is not about this. It happens only when I stand against the violence of the system, political system, sociological system, economic system. This is not about an individual doing something to me. No, this is about the system. And then I feel like my body really starts burning. And there are many women who feel the same, not only in Poland. So I think this moment of this flaming fucking fury, when you feel that you are in flames, this is the moment that the ghosts are capturing us to use us to make a rebel. This is political ghosts, I think.
I can hear.
I can kind of agree with your flaming fucking fury, but
I see it in your eyes.
but to me it's funny because it's not when I meet ghosts. It's another. It's political. But
Okay.
but because my ghosts are different. I think they are. I think my ghosts are more material, because whenever I of course one doesn't know whether you meet a ghost, but to me it's when somebody's typically somebody who has died. Sometimes when I think about them, there are really weird things happening, like lights going on that I haven't turned on, or things moving. I mean, once it was just a metal chain that started to move after a friend had died. And I mean, it was really weird as well, because I mean, it's of course it's in situations where there is no wind, there is nothing that does it. But then it was also one of these things to whip dressings and stuff. Some of them have a little ball in them. And suddenly it started to move, and I said, "Oh, hello," because I knew who it was. It was somebody who was. I said, "Just hello and welcome, and what do you want to talk about?" But to me, it is so. It's not kind of in a human form, and it's not in a kind of a emotional form either. It's more things that behave strangely. So. And I've, of course, the first time I experienced it, it was like, yeah, of course, there's a wind blowing, but there never is. So I think ghosts have many forms. Yeah. If we
maybe the nature of ghosts depends on whom they attack.
Yes, I know.
Activistic ghosts.
What they, yeah, exactly. Maybe there's a lot of them. Maybe there's some quiet ones that just want you to think a little bit and reflect. So maybe we have a whole world of different ghosts. So yeah.
Okay, I like the ideas. As we are discussing, we're entering and we're sitting on the edge of like reality and phantasmagory. We don't really know. And I think this is all about, like, all of your novels have this in common, that we enter a time and space that we don't really know. We're not really at ease where is reality? Is it somewhere I can identify or not? And I'm taking up on your idea of materiality, and I'm going back. I'm taking this. First, to mention something that I completely forgot to tell you guys in the very beginning, which is that the very books that were showed there are available at the bookshop of Passa Porta, and the book signing will be just right after our conversation. But materiality goes beyond that. I wanna ask you also, because like all your books are very different in terms of format, right? In terms of length. Solvej, your books, it's a series, right? So there are 7 volumes, right, that are planned to be published. So it's sort of a work in process, and I was just curious to know also what it was like to, write about time while your book is in the process of under the realm of time, and do you have a clear idea of where you're going, and do you know that since the very beginning, or is it like sort of evolving as you're promoting your book, you're writing, you're maybe rereading the previous the previous ones? And that's going to be my question for you, and then I'll be asking you.
Okay, yeah, but I didn't know it was 7 bits when I started. I thought this is just a novel. I mean, it's just it's a small idea. It was just a novel, but then it started to move, and grew. So I thought, oh, maybe it's two volumes, and then after a while, I can see I have 4 files in my computer. So I realized, oh, but there's 4, and then it continued. So, but it was not until I knew that there was 7 that I could see. I mean, it was almost as if the material collected itself in material again. The material of the books collected itself in groups. So, oh, that book 1 is about such and such, and so when I actually managed to distinguish them in bits and started to get I got the covers made as well, And then I could see, okay, that is what the book is doing. So it was a long listening process. And it took, I mean, it did take a long time because I started already in the 80s, and I didn't really know why can it not be, why is it so hard to get it done and get it to develop. But then when and so that means that I had written a lot of it. Book 7 is actually partly written as well, and I'm working on book 6 now, and the others are finished. But I had book 1, 2, and 3 before I even published number 1. So that it was a very strange process. So I kind of had to listen to the book in order to find out what it was like. So it was almost there, and I do know the ending. Yeah.
Well, it's
and I
still.
can tell you if you want.
But you give me the perfect transition, actually, because like this process of going back and forth in time is like at the very heart of your novel, Agnieszka, right? Because and maybe you can tell us more about what it's about. But there's this main character that is sort of reconnecting her unknown past with her present. So maybe did you have, when you started, how was the process of writing? Did you have an idea of like the format that you wanted to achieve, or did you have since the beginning this idea of like going back and forth with like 17th century and time present? Or how was that?
Yeah, okay. So I read once in the magazine. Wasn't clever magazine, but then I checked this fact, and it is fact that in the region that I come from in Poland, which was the German region, as I mentioned before, there was a stove constructed for burning witches, like a real stove. And this kind of constructions, they also appeared in some German cities like Bamberg. So in 16th century, they built there a stove, and the stove was prepared for witch hunt, and some of women has been burned in this. And it happened also in this region where I come from. So that was something incredible for me. It like hooked me that burning people in stoves didn't happen in Holocaust first, that women has been used as a prototype for this kind of, I don't know how to say, death. But I didn't know how to write this novel. I didn't want to tell the story about the stove and the women which has been burned into this. I'm a feminist, so I also had that big impact of, lectures that I read, and Silvia Federici, Caliban and the Witch, and all that stuff, anti-capitalistic stuff were like in my head. And I knew that I cannot rely on this. I knew I can't rely only on this. So I followed my dreams. 2 of them were like amazing, huge dreams. One of them about cows that has been drawn in the river. And I cannot tell you the dream because you can read it in the book. It's much better written than I will talk about this. And another dream was about collective orgasms of women in the moment of death. And it was something like, really, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't live my life normally because I was very close to madness because of these 2 dreams. So I went to my therapist, a man, and he, I said, I might say that I'm bringing you like really good stuff, so please make an effort to give me a good explanation. And the thing he said was like really, really crap. Like crap. For the first year of studies of Freud or something like this. And I was like, really, like I'm paying such a big money, like it's a bourgeois thing to walk for the therapy and pay that much to listen to this crap explanation. So I didn't take it. And I've started searching, doing research for my dreams about the milk, about oxytocin, about the alchemy of how to make, I know it sounds stupid, how to make a fromage, a cheese, a white cheese. We have it in Poland, we have a cheese, white cheese. I don't know, do you have the one that you can slice by knife and it still keeps its condition? But I knew it's like very strange, but I did a huge research. And what I discovered was that many of women who were called to be a witch and died, they've been accused of putting spells on cows. Cows were in 80% of acts that I read. Cows. And like putting spell on the milk, or making the cow was dead, or making a husband a disease because of making a bad cheese, something like this. So the cheese and milk and cows were like very important for witchcraft topics, and also this collective orgasms, and an orgasm as a moment of splitting the soul from the body, which gives you enormous chance, as nothing else, only madness gives you this chance as an orgasm, to make a cleft, a snitch, a cleft inside you, through which, the cleft, through which the marriages that are out of our culture, like Western European culture, like we never talk about things like this, come through this. During orgasms, when you make this cleft in your body and soul, something can come through you, and this is not about you, this is not about you as an individual, this is a moment when marginalized culture can come and speak through the voices that have been silent for me. So orgasms are political for me, very like political moment. I'm not losing any of my orgasms, although when I'm doing this on my own, yeah, it's only a pleasure, but with a person or with a plant, as in hexes, because hexes are not about making sex with humans, with anthropos. There are post-human novel in some way, post-porn, you make love to plants. So this is also political.
What happened to the therapist?
Okay.
I want to go
He's
back
still
to
alive, earning his money, yes, and giving his explanations to other.
Not to you anymore.
Yeah, not to me anymore.
it probably lived another momentum of its own. But I'm gonna grab on this like idea of like your relationship with your therapist to go on your novel, Andrés, in which you have two characters, and I'm not going to unveil anything, but you have one a female character that's older that is speaking to a child. And there's a very special connection that is happening between them two. But I want to go back to this idea of lens, because this is a very short novel. And I was just curious to know if it was also very a very conscious process of yours while you were writing to keep it short, because there's a sense of intensity, maybe not as intense as Agnieszka's relationship with a therapist, but there's a sense of intensity in this connection, and does that have something in common with the format?
Well, I do love short novels. I love them so much. I think it always take like a double effort to get them, because you have to do something that it looks easy but is really difficult. What is to determine, to know what is essential and what is not, what you can go and what can go out of the novel. Charles Dickens, who was a ghost writer, one of the most known ghost writers. He didn't believe in ghosts, by the way. Do you know that? Charles Dickens didn't believe in ghosts. And he always thought about ghost stories like a metaphor thing. For a metaphor, it has like a double way. For in one hand, you have to know what is essential and what is not, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of thinking to know, and a lot of writing, because you only know what is essential through writing. The same way you only know what is essential in your life through living, no? And then you turn your look back, and then, well, that was essential, that was not. I thought that was essential, and it wasn't, and this type of thing. So the only way to know what is essential is to go through the whole writing, and then to see, well, I thought it was not, and it is, so far. So I don't know where I was going. I was going somewhere. I was completely lost. About the length, right? For when I was writing the novel, the only thing that I knew for sure is that I didn't know how to end my novel till I was there. I remember I was writing this Flannery O'Connor lecture about one of, it's a writer I love, Flannery O'Connor, and he gave a lecture about how she wrote one of her most known stories, Good People from the Countryside, or something like that is the title. And it's about a woman who has a wooden leg, and he has a kind of a flirt with a guy who is selling Bibles. And it's amazing because at the end of the story, I'm not spoiling the whole thing, don't worry about that. The guy is a prick, and he stole the wooden leg of the girl. When it is, I was thinking about the outrage you're talking about. The outrage you feel when you read that guy is doing that is amazing. It's like you putting you into flames. And Flannery O'Connor was saying, my surprise is as big as the character's surprise, because I didn't know till I was there that the wooden leg, it was going to be stolen. I think the only way of go through writing a ghost story or things like that they work in a way like a machine, because all the elements has to be there, and it has to work, especially short novels, they have to work very well like a machine, no? But the writing is a chaotic process. The searching is a chaotic process. You never know what is essential and what is not. And it needs like a way back through writing to the whole thing. I'm talking about time, ghost stories are written in reverse. So only when you finish the first draft, the story begins, and you have to go again backwards to know what is the real beginning of the story and what is the real theme, the real subject of the story. So it's shorter books, the shorter is the book, the harder is the writing most of the time. Because of that, especially, because you never know what is essential and what is not.
Thank you very much for this. I'm picking up on this idea of like politics and activism, and orgasm, sensations and time. We tend to hear a lot about this, like that, we have all lost track of time, that, younger generations are under the realm of, social media, everything is accelerating and stuff. And be it true or not, I'm just curious to know, as your 3 books are, devoted to exploring another temporality, what's your view on this? Do you see a sense of responsibility as a writer to offer a different format so that readers can experiment new temporalities? What's your take on this, if you have any?
Well, I think I don't know if I don't know if I can say I have a take on it, because it's more the book that has it, because I was in that book for such a long time, and had to find out what is the time mechanisms of this book, and more, because I mean, when it started, it was, I mean, we in the 80s you had this idea of no future. I mean, there was the no future generation with youth unemployment, all these things, and 40 years later, there is still this. Then it's the planet. I mean, we were afraid of nuclear war and all these things, and of course there's climate today. And for me, this whole project or this process it wasn't that I wanted to tell somebody something about whatever I thought in that realm, but the book wanted to somehow examine what does happen when time stops and when there is no future. So it felt as if the book was a comment on the political situation all along, more than it was my comments. My comments would be much more kind of out in the world, but the book wanted, I mean, this whole idea of stopping time and being able to see what is wrong in when you have time to look at what happens in one day. But also this feeling, because when time stops, to me, or I found out on the way in the work with the book, that time somehow became a container when you've only got one day that repeats itself. So instead of being a line or a river that flows or a circle or something, then it became a container that you dip yourself into every day. And this feeling of living in that, the person in the main character, Sarah Seltzer, who's an antiquarian bookseller, she realizes that she's in that day, and it continues, and she starts to use the world. I mean, she buys things, eats them, and then they disappear. So the supermarket nearby gets more and more empty. And to me, it wasn't a decision. It was exactly what you mentioned that happened, that, you know, you learn something on the way. You have your plans about the book, but then suddenly she realized that she became a monster because she was using up her world. So in a way, she was a monster, and her husband, who is in the same house, became a ghost because he doesn't use up the day. So it was the mechanism of the story more than it was my ideas that made me realize that it was a comment on the present situation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this idea of mechanism hasn't changed as you were writing, right? Because you mentioned that you knew where you were going, so it means like...
Yeah, but a lot of things popped up in the middle. I mean, I knew the end and I knew the basic story, but there was many things that somehow surprised me. And one of these things was that it became a climate book, and in a way it became a COVID book too, without I didn't know anything about COVID, so it became many things that, I mean, somehow it fitted into the world we live in, which was very strange. I mean, that was pretty shocking for me, actually. Yeah.
I'm trying to have more information, but it's not working. We'll have to read it, I'm afraid. But any take on this responsibility of writers in these times we're living, and the responsibility of trying to develop another temporality as you in your books, to maybe open up the readers to a different time? I don't know. Do you have any?
Okay. I think that some of the writers who are not afraid of this kind of game, some writers that are not afraid of blurring their own boundaries, they need to use themselves as a kind of mediums for, you know, Think about Europe. What is happening now? Also, when I'm here in Belgium, it has its own history. We know this history, like all of us know this history. Poland has its own history. We all make mistakes, huge. And because of our politics, because of making ourselves privileged, we, in some metaphysical way, I will use Karl Jasper's category of metaphysical guilt, are responsible for letting all those ghosts from the past speaking through us. This is what I think we are doing. Some poets, some writers, they use themselves and as mediums. And recently I have this experience working on a series, and the series is also available in Belgium. It's called Black Daisies, and I told the story of German women who worked for Nazis, worked for Himmlers, but they belonged to the system and to the region that I come from, and refusing those ghosts having their own place in the systems, denying this place, will make my life and the life of my children and their children unbearable, because all those ghosts from all our histories, from all our countries, will be trying to catch us, to tell all the stories that haven't been told yet of the particular single individual or of all the nations or all the genres, I don't know, all the marginalized groups. I think that we will be captured to the end of our lives to tell the story of each of the human being, of the animal being, of the plant being, of the any unit that has suffered because of someone's privilege. And this is the responsibility, in my opinion, for the writer. Not for all of them, because not all of them feel the same drive to this. But I feel this drive, that I am responsible for being a voice for those who hasn't been privileged and also has been pushed out of the main structure of system. I have disabled daughters, as I mentioned to you before, and I feel a responsibility, huge responsibility, to speak also for people with disabilities. And I feel the obligation to creep my own identity, not to be a neurotypical. So I'm performing kind of neurodiversity every day because I have these daughters. So I feel loyalty due to them to be a part of it. And I think this is a kind of responsibility that I can do as a writer. Yeah.
Well, it's a big question, isn't it? But I think the most important condition of temporality for us now is that time is broken. It's broken in every sense. We only, for instance, take pieces of information with the news, for instance, that are small and out of context. So we're always receiving small pieces of things, of reality, without context and broken. No, so we are living in a situation that everything that we get is broken in a way through time. So, and on the other hand, we have a continuous sense that something possible is going on the side all the time. This is one of my favorite stories, ghost story, is Henry James. I can spoil him because he's a master and the story it has, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's a story called The Jolly Corner. It's about a guy. It's also an autobiographical story, and it's beautiful because it's the first moment in literature that the ghost is the same character that the narrator. So he is a guy who's living in London, and he has to go back to New York where he was raised to sell a family house that now is empty. When he gets to the house, after 20 years of not being in America, he senses that there is a ghost in the house. So he starts hunting the ghost, which is one of the things that always happen in ghost stories. There's someone trying to hunt a ghost who is kind of escaping. So he spent like weeks trying to hunt the ghost, and at the very end of the story, he has the ghost on the other side of a closed door, and when he's going to go open the door, he realizes who is the ghost. And the ghost is himself, is the person that he would have become if he would have stayed in America. And he's a monster. He's a monster. Because we are all monsters. We have like all this monster version of ourselves. So it's a beautiful story that has a lot to do with our sense of time. The sense that we are like parallel lines of times that could have happened, and they're happening in a way, even though they're not. We have lost the sense of real, what is real, and it's as real as this life could be, the parallel life that is going without touching this one. And what is more real is a question that we cannot answer always. So these two things, there are parallel times that are as real as this one, and all our experience of time is broken. In the acts between these two feelings that in a way are contradictory, I think we experience times nowadays, which is a very an erotical way of looking at time. No? It's like kind of, we never know what we're talking about when we talk about time.
Well, we've used this word quite many times, and I'm afraid to say that we are running out of time. So maybe just one last question, and there would be plenty of them, and I'm sure you'll have the opportunity to speak more with the authors right after. But maybe one idea or one thing, one ghost, one time, one story that you would like to leave us with? Just one, I don't know.
I was actually thinking of a little bit of a response to the things that you were mentioning too. I mean, this idea that something is broken, and this idea that you can be a medium. I mean, this that somehow that there is. And it's really funny because we seem to have forgotten as well which medium we are working in, because to me, it's also, I mean, or it's actually not me, it's my main character who says at a certain time, she says, maybe there's something healing in sentences. Not in words, because so often we have this idea words can heal or whatever, but for her it's sentences. And this idea that things are broken and something has to be healed. If I should follow the main character, I would say, but we're also working in language. You're talking about kind of using language to heal time, or using language to let other individuals talk through you, to talk for somebody. And I think somehow the language we have in common is, even though we're speaking different languages, but the idea of putting bits together that are broken through language is actually such a, I mean, to me it's such a positive and hopeful thing that sometimes one feels maybe we can actually fix something. Maybe it is, maybe language is a help. It can do other things too. But so I was actually thinking maybe, I mean, for me at least, it would be sentences that could do things for us. Yeah.
I won't only give this idea to someone else. I mean, if it's possible for you, maybe some of you read that book. I would like to mention the most wonderful book on ghosts for me. It's George Sanders' Lincoln in Bardo, which is all about ghosts, about the son of Lincoln who died. And this is such an amazing book in which all the ideas, I believe, and all the mechanisms of transmutation of energy works perfectly. So for me, it's only the idea of reading this book, because I think it's the best book on ghosts.
I'm going to tell a story that happened like in Christmas 2 months ago. I was with my daughter. She's 2 years old, 2 years and a half. And we were at the Cordillera de los Andes in the border with Chile. Beautiful, incredible mountains. And she started dancing like a shaman. All of a sudden, no? Like a witch. We were hiking a little bit, and we can see the like a small town over there, and she started dancing like that, like a small witch. And I was like, and then start to like do something to the small town like that, and I asked her, "What are you doing?" "I'm talking to my people." And I was like, "Shit!" Like she's older than me. I thought I had like a strong feeling that she was so old, and that is, I think, something has a lot to do with time. I mean, we're coming through like a huge thread of time, and I don't know. I mean, there was something like the legacy, and you were talking about legacy, the legacy with literature and words, the legacy through people that we have about time. It's amazing, and it's magic also, no? It goes all this magical thing, it crosses, you were talking about magical thing, it crosses the magical thinking, right? So.
Well, I'm hoping to close upon this idea of language and literature being open doors to imagination in different temporalities, and maybe salvation, I don't know. But I really want to thank you very much, each of you. I do recommend very strongly and very warmly to read each of your books that are available at Passa Porta bookshop, but I don't even know where it is. It's 2 minutes walk. So you just follow them afterwards. Maybe can you please join me in giving a round of applause for the writer?